So when people ask, can you tell me what's right? I get it. No one's being lazy and no one's being naive. They're, I think, responding to real confusion and lack of education and real pressure. And that's exactly why there are voices in our culture who step in and offer some clear, definitive guidance about sex. And that kind of advice serves a very real purpose. And believe me, I understand its appeal. It also comes from a very different function from the work that I do. And the difference is what I want to talk about next. Okay, so let's talk about the difference between definitive advice and lived experience. Some voices are trying to shape culture, and there are others like myself who are working with lived experience. Now, neither is inherently better, but they are doing very different jobs. So when you think about culture shaping voices, think about Dan Savage, Lisa Mangaldes, maybe Emily Morrissey. There's others out there too. They are really kind of aimed at efficiency and scale, and they are culture shaping and giving new vocabulary and really injecting that into the culture. And it is such a wonderful service. And I'm so, so, so glad that we have it. Therapy, on the other hand, and I think working with lived experience is really about holding space for the fact that contradictions exist and context and relational nuance can really change almost everything. And what helps one person may actually harm another. Efficiency is, I think, an admirable thing to chase in many ways, but it's also not a neutral value, and it doesn't have to be the highest one. There's kind of this idea of form following function, and my function isn't to shape culture. It's to help people hear themselves. And here's where that really starts to matter, because the way that advice is delivered, especially when it comes from authority, it doesn't just shape understanding, it shapes what people feel allowed to question. And I want you to feel allowed to question everything, absolutely everything. So you might be sitting here going like, wow, you really have some big feelings, Emma, about why absolutes seem to end conversations. And yeah, I do. I think that things like authority and certainty can flatten complexity. And I think that, absolutes can feel grounding, but they can also shut down exploration. When experts speak definitively, especially when they're talking about people they've never met, and I'm not talking about I can't speak to the hard sciences. I can only speak to the relational psychological sciences. I think that what ends up happening is that when we speak too definitively about something, our clients or our audience, whoever's listening to us, can tend to defer instead of reflect on what they've heard and figure out oh, does this fit for me? That's why I say I'll never tell you what to do. If you ever run into any of my clients in the wild and they say, she told me what to do, you will know that that is not true. They are not my client, because all of my clients will tell you, oh, that girl would never tell me what to do. She would always say, I'll invite you to consider. Why? Because questions invite and support agency, and as far as science goes, I've been in this field long enough to watch science evolve. Right? Things that we used to think and held true previously, we no longer hold as true. So it is what it is. We just try to hold those conclusions lightly. So, I do back my work with science when it's available, but I don't try, I really try to not confuse evidence with eternal, unchanging truth. So with that in mind, what the heck do we do instead?